if you've been watching the news recently, it's not for the right reasons. It's been because of the lack of, you can say, effort, lack of accountability. But we're talking about the Pittsburgh Steelers, who really have had the roughest of weeks. The last 3 weeks, you lose to the Cardinals, you lose to the Pats, then you lose to the Colts. But what's being discussed now is effort. And specifically, George Pickens has been under fire because of the lack of effort, including on a play where Jaylen Warren was trying to score, and George Pickens said, "No, thank you. I'm not being a part of this play." And I don't know if we have the actual video here, but we have the video, but we also have Pat McAfee that talks about this situation a little bit more. So let's take a look at this and talk about it after.
George Pickens talking about the blocking play.
The Jaylen Warren run toward the end zone, what'd you see on that? And would you handle that differently if you had to do it over again?
No, I was just trying to prevent the Tank Dell situation, the same thing that happened to Tank Dell. I didn't want to get an injury. When you stay on the block too long, you can get ran up on very easy.
So some people are questioning your effort.
Yeah, all the people that's questioning my effort, downplay football, they do what y'all do.
Okay, so I do appreciate that he has built up quite a hatred for the media. He did an interview, a press conference at his locker in another interview portion here the last couple of days. And he took a couple shots at guys that never played ball before, guys that obviously building up a lot of narratives about me. He's heard it all, I think. And that was, he was using his outside voice for that particular. You should have kept that one inside. Yeah, I think that's our big takeaway as soon as we hear it, because anytime somebody who wants to build a narrative about somebody hears something like that, they are definitely going to be like, I ain't want an injury. Yeah. Okay. Is that, I ain't want an injury. That's why you're not going to give effort. And that got real loud. Remember, George Pickens can throw people around and has demonstrated that he would throw people around. Here's some clips from last year. See you later. And he even mentioned this in his press conference. He said, last year, the same, he was down at the bottom there. He said, the last year, people were telling me how good of a blocker I am. Now the same people telling me I'm not the same blocker and everything like that. So George Pickens is certainly a target of conversation in Pittsburgh, around the Pittsburgh sports media.
I mean, are people saying he's not a good blocker suddenly, or people saying he's not giving effort blocking? Because I haven't seen anyone like Pat McAfee just showed. George Pickens coming out of college, physicality was not a question with George Pickens. It was the attitude issue. It was, is he going to buy into a team if he is not a star? And slowly, it's like Pat McAfee said, if people are going to try to create a narrative about you, say you don't care, you're not a team player, when you give an answer like, oh, I was going to block for him, but I didn't want to get injured myself, that will be used against you.
Well, and that's just the thing, right? Like McAfee was showing a lot of the footage from last year when the Steelers were actually in it a little bit more, and not really as not really as much of a mess. Goddamn.
Get it out of you.
Not as much of a mess. I was trying so hard to hang on to it. How do you do this, Rocco? How do you not sneeze on TV?
He doesn't know. You just look at him.
You just sneeze on TV anyway?
Yeah. Well, hey, to give context here for a second, and then we can get from Rocco, bring Rocco back from behind the scenes. But the context of it, I want to say first off, he mentioned Tank Dell. For those that don't know the situation of Tank Dell, Texans wide receiver, lost for the season. There was a play at the goal line, running play. Tank Dell got rolled up on. I think it was a fractured leg. Done for the season, right? And that's a huge part of their offense. So I understand the worry. Here's where the problem is when your team just lost 2 straight games, and there's been trouble with, obviously, offensive production. Your offensive coordinator gets fired, and then you continue to lose games. And then, yes, maybe the ball hasn't been distributed the way that you'd want, and everything seems to be going against Pittsburgh. And this is where the problem is that you have guys continuing to fight, and that's what they're looking at with George Pickens, is that when the shit gets tough, what do you do when the shit gets tough? And right now, Pickens is making business decisions of saying, well, I'm doing what's in the best interest of my team, And now the play in question, Jaylen Warren, the running back, was asked about it, Brad. And I think we have that graphic right here.
Yeah.
And so Jaylen Warren was just asked, if I was in that position, I would have blocked for him. Speaking of George Pickens. And so this is the message where in a locker room, you don't want to be known as that guy. And I'm sure the Pittsburgh Steelers are having internal conversations, right? It's understandable. but you can't say those types of comments out loud. McAfee's right. You got a comment that you're pissed about. Don't give anybody any other reason to hate on you and shit on you.
Well, and Tomlin actually addressed this with the media too, and said that like, hey, like basically called Pickens out for saying something like that, and then also was like, that's basically not the standard as what he as he always likes to quote. So I mean, so it wasn't even just that Jaylen Warren came out and said something about it. His own coach came out and said something about it too. So like, I understand like trying to defend him as far as like his level of effort, but listen, the optics are that you don't give the same type of effort as you have been giving. So George Pickens can sit there and shit on the media all he wants, but he's in control of his own narrative.
Yeah. And I think Dan Orlovsky brought up a great point today. I'm not sure which one of the shows it was on, but he said he's been on a lot of bad teams. And when you're on a bad team that has not a bad clubhouse, but you're not winning games, that's the stuff that happens. You have guys not blocking for each other. You have guys calling each other out. And he said it's weird because throughout his whole playing career, that was never the Pittsburgh Steelers. And it is still weird. The Steelers you would never think are, they're going to have locker room issues. And then suddenly the past 5-6 years, it just feels like each year there's another issue. So I'm not sure if the luck just ran out or what happened, but Dan Orlovsky's right. This is not the Steelers that you think of. You don't think of, they have a bunch of, their locker room's horrible, they don't get along, anything like that. Usually it was, that's a team we're worried about because they are so together going towards the same prize, and Tomlin's got them playing on all cylinders.
Yep.
Yeah, and winning fixes a lot of things. And that's why it's a great message for anyone. Everyone's watching you. It don't matter what's going on. There is a camera on you. And if you're going to play on this level and this stage of your career and have the opportunity to play in the NFL, you don't do something, it's going to be magnified. And when you're on an organization that has a certain standard and now the standard's not being met and everyone's talking about it, it's going to be more magnified. Rocco, I know you're hiding behind in the curtain here. Let's bring him back out, Brad. Can we bring him back out? There he is. I mean, hey, it's are you shaking your head of the comments, or are you shaking your head because of the effort or the video and the comments that happened?
Just everything, man. Everything about this season for the Pittsburgh Steelers has been just an absolute dumpster fire. And this is going to be, you're going to look back, and obviously for the Steelers, they're going to wish this season would have gone much differently. They've now lost 3 straight, like you talked about. 2 of those games were to the Patriots and Cardinals, 2 of the worst teams in the entire league, inexcusable losses. And then you lose to the Colts. But this season has been filled with moments like this, from wanting to get rid of your offensive coordinator and Matt Canada, everyone trying to run him out of town because the offense it was just terrible at that point in time. It's still not great at all. To the Deontay Johnson not going after the fumble, the whole ordeal inside the locker room that was reported. And then you have this with George Pickens, Ben Roethlisberger's comments about this isn't the Steelers' way, players responding to that. So there's been a lot of talk from the outside and on the inside, and it's not good for this organization at all. And with George Pickens, so that's just not winning football by any means. He's 22 years old. He's still young into his career, and I hope he has a very successful career, because this is a dude with a ton of potential, and he's got a skill set that speaks for itself. But his attitude with that, with a play like that, to take it off. So you're telling me, if I am a GM, a coach, an owner of the team, that you're okay with your player, your teammate potentially getting hurt, and you care more about yourself than your teammate? Because what if the guy that George Pickens it was supposed to block comes in and takes out Jaylen Warren's legs, and he breaks his leg, or he tears up his knee? George Pickens is going to feel really bad about that going forward. So, and that's going to weigh on his mind and his conscience. So to me, that's just not winning football. It's inexcusable. And Jaylen Warren, he said it. We read those comments. He said, I would have blocked for him, but he also said we play differently, which is true. But you're out there. It's a brotherhood. You're on the field with your teammates, your guys. And the expectation is you go out and you make the plays necessary to play winning football, to get that win, and to see your brothers, your teammates succeed, and to get that guy in the end zone. And George Pickens, he simply didn't do that. And it's something that I hope he takes a long and hard look at it. And he says, you know what? I don't want to do that again going forward. I want to be the guy that makes that play, that makes that winning play. and that can get our guy in the end zone.
Yeah, I mean, I know everyone on this panel here has a feeling about Christian McCaffrey. We all believe he's a phenomenal player. But you know what the San Francisco 49ers, you know what the San Francisco 49ers do as good as anybody? Their wide receivers finish plays. They are blocking all the way downfield.
They take pride in it.
It's a mentality, right?
Yeah.
It's
Even
a mentality.
Zach's favorite player, Brock Purdy, is running downfield chasing after Christian McCaffrey when he has those long runs, right? Zach, your MVP, Brock Purdy.
Yeah, exactly. Actually, you know who I did see? Got to give him credit. Monday night, 2 or 3 runs where Drew Lock was throwing some blocks downfield on that one touchdown. He threw the ceiling off the edge. I was like, Drew Lock wants this thing. And that, like you said, Rocco, it's part of that brotherhood. It's I want to help this team succeed. It's the we, not me attitude.
Yeah.
And, you know, just not to beat a dead horse, but it was George Pickens' ability was never in question in college. He was always, if the attitude was better, he's a top 15 pick. And
Even
the Steelers knew that.
Even back to high school.
The Steelers knew that. And I think Tomlin was like, hey, I like my chances of controlling him. And like you said, Rocco, you hope because he has so much talent and he's so much fun. The catches this man makes are ridiculous. So it's better for the NFL when he's playing at a high level. You just hope that he can do enough and fix this off the field attitude stuff so it doesn't impact the on the field play like we're starting to see.
Yeah, and I want to make one point right here because this was brought up about where is it that I just missed? Because there's another similarity, not similarity, but Tua has been criticized his entire career, right? He can't play with somebody, and he'll honestly and objectively say, well, hey, I've heard what you guys are talking about. He says, I keep the receipts, but I'm not focused on that. I'm focused on my team. There's a way that you can do it. As soon as you spin it about why you don't do something and say about an injury and then criticize the media, whether it's right or wrong, you're just going to look like an ass. That's just the reality of the situation. And so in this case, when it rains, it pours. That's what you're seeing in Pittsburgh, and they are at an identity crisis, something that they really have dealt with over the last, 5 or so years, but specifically these last couple of years. Ever since Big Ben left, you can kind of see this next wave of guys. I'll tell you what, Hines Ward, when he was there with Pittsburgh, he would have been right in the thick of everything. That dude, you could have hated him in Baltimore, and he laid out Ed Reed on that blind side. But Hines Ward, that physicality, that type of presence is what Pittsburgh's missing right now.